Hey, Fringe listeners, it's Lucy, the podcast production manager here at People Forward Network. On Fringe, we celebrate the power of great conversations that move people forward, and we love to invite podcast hosts, even those outside of our own network, to share leadership moments and insights. And today, we're joined by Gerald Gordon, founder of ReferenceMe.ai and a leader on a mission to transform how companies find and hire talent. Gerald brings over 20 years of hiring management experience, and he's tackling one of the most pressing challenges in today's job market: AI inflation, where every resume looks perfect, but finding the right person has never been harder or more expensive. Through his work, Gerald is moving professional reference verification from the end of the hiring process to the beginning, and he's helping companies reduce costs, save time, and make better hires by focusing on what truly matters: the people who've worked with candidates and can vouch for their results. Whether you're an executive, HR professional, or hiring manager dealing with a high-volume recruiting, turnover, or pressure to build the right team, Gerald's insights will challenge how you think about talent acquisition. This is just another way that we get to help people experience meaningful work, and I hope you love this episode. And if you do, go follow Gerald's work at ReferenceMe.ai.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to talk to you about how AI is changing the landscape of hiring on the Fringe podcast. My name is Gerald, and I am co-founder of ReferenceMe, which is a company that supports companies in ways of helping them reduce 60% in their hiring cost. In addition to that, we have outplacement services to support your executives or senior leaders when you have to do a layoff or have to restructure your business. As a result of those things, even though they're not the greatest aspects of our careers, sometimes they turn out to be extremely helpful for those who are interested in moving on. But I'm not here to talk about my business and what I do. Instead, I want to have a very thoughtful conversation with my special guests as we dive into how AI is changing the way that people hire. And what better way to do this is to talk with my friend, Mr. Steve Browne. Now, Steve Browne is a chief people officer at LaRosa Inc. And from what I understand, they have an incredible system in place in which they're able to hire at all levels of the business and also maintain a reduction in turnover that's different than what you have experienced in traditional businesses. In addition to that, I've done a little bit of research on Steve. And one of the things that really touched me is if you go to his LinkedIn profile and you read up on some of the blogs that he's put out, he always gives you some insight in real life and enjoying life, and then how it relates to helping people. And in some of the comments from some of his supporters, they specifically said this: he puts the H in human resources. And I just love that, because what they're saying is human resources is about humans. And when you have people who are passionate about that, we can learn a lot from them. So, Steve, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Gerald, it's nice to meet you. And thanks for the kind introduction. I'm excited to talk to you.
Awesome. So, Steve, let's jump right into this. How did you get passionate about human resources, and what motivated you to stay in this field for the amount of time that you have?
I fell into it in college by mistake. I started out as an engineer and then a chemist because I thought that would be bigger money. But I was failing out of college, literally. And I went home, and my mom and dad are fantastic and supportive. And my mom said, "Why aren't you in a field with people?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "All you do is people. Everything you're in is people. Let's find something where you can do that." So I chose to go into personnel back then. It's a long time ago, Gerald. And had my first job when I came out of college in recruiting, and then moved into an HR generalist role after that. because I didn't quite fit the company I was at. It's a great company, but I don't fit big environments. So I went to small places. And what has kept me passionate is people. I love it when people say they're a people person. I'm like, are you? Because I want to see if you really are. Because I am. I think people are fascinating, and they still are. So there's so much more you can do on the human side of HR versus the compliance side or the tech side. I think they go hand in hand, but we can't forget it's about people.
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree. But now that we're in this environment where systems and automation are actually taking a front row seat, where companies feel that they can use AI to pretty much automate the entire experience when it comes to HR, I wonder, how do we think about humans in this process where you have Gen AI that can make a digital twin of any person that they want? And if you pay enough money, you can be convinced that you're actually talking to the person, but you're not talking to the person. You're engaging with a digital twin.
I just heard about this, and I knew that AI was moving rapidly because it's AI. But when I heard that, applicants are doing things where they're not really applying, they're just using AI to get the resume or the application to say what it's supposed to say to get through the process. And then AI comes from the employer and they kind of fight. But when they have the whole digital twin, that's kind of spooky, to be honest. It's unfortunate. I think that it puts people in a bad position because I know they want to work. I know they want to have opportunities, and if they feel they have to go through these barriers or these hurdles in using technology this way instead of using it for positive things, that's tough. I think it's really changing the environment of talent acquisition, and we should be mindful of it and see how to use it in a positive way. But there's some challenges out there. It's hard to keep up with, and I don't like people gaming the system. I don't like people gaming the system when it was not AI. In the end, we're still hiring people to do jobs. So if there are ways to work alongside automation to bring that along, I think it's wonderful because it saves time, it's thorough. But what I continue to see is it doesn't know nuance. And I think that's what HR should help look for, TA professionals, is what's the nuances? It's a shame that I have to think of questions to try and fool a machine.
Oh, that is so true. Because the whole point is to get to know the person to see if they're a good fit, not to determine how well they're able to trick a machine. So I
Right.
totally agree.
Right. But there's a way to do that. I think if the profession would get away from the interview dance approach, hey, I'll ask you the things that match my 5 bullets on my thing, and you answer your 5 bullets, and we make a career decision. We have to change how we're interviewing. And we've had to
Mm.
do that for a long time. If we're really going to consider people for the talent they have, then we have to format how we approach this to get to those talent type questions instead of the check the mark demographic things. We've become complacent as a profession to just say match the bullets and get hired. And then we find out that you didn't really have the skills you said you did. That some
Mm.
candidates are doing a dance, HR is doing a dance. It needs to be redone, reset.
So if you had all the resources in the world at your disposal, how would you reset that specific intimate moment where you have a potential employee sitting in front of you, and then you have the company who wants to fill a role? How would you change how we do interviews to allow that exposure to be more of a conversation about how you fit in with the culture versus just trying to answer the questions correctly?
I have a perfect example. About 5 years ago, we hired a director of marketing, and we had all of the attributes of the position of the role. But when we posted it, we said, we're looking for a director of marketing. Here's who we are. If you're interested, apply. And so people applied. But I had people that were going through the process and were very traditional in how they've been treated as a candidate and how companies have treated them to say, well, give me the bullet points. We didn't give people bullet points. And we have people not apply. Very talented people. The ones who did, when we sat down in the interview with the candidates, we said, we're thinking of going this way strategically in marketing. If you had that opportunity to do this, what would it look like? And they described, and you could hear how they thought, if they had critical thinking, if it was rote, if it was catchphrases. And it was a rich, rich conversation. And just like we do now on webinars and podcasts, it's I hear what you say, I give you the question, I hear what you say. We didn't focus so much on how many years experience do you have? Can you read your resume to me? It was all about if you had this scenario, how would you handle it? And we ended up hiring an amazing person. She's been here now 6 years. She's now the VP of marketing. When she hired her staff, we asked her to do the same thing, not be so tight and bound to those things, but be descriptive. And we ended up hiring 2 other talented people. So it takes a little risk to do this, a little faith. So instead of having it written and people just say match the dots, know what you want to do. But what you're trying to do is add people to your company who will move your company forward. Not I'm filling a role because it's a job wreck. Too many times it's, plug the hole still. Instead of saying, this is what we have. What do you bring to the table? Gee, that sounds great. And here's where we start instead of here's where we finish. So we're taking more of a front end look to it instead of we're going to hire you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely love that. And that wordplay of you don't know what the next question is because it's filled into the conversation is beautiful because it gives us that ability to have a true, honest connection. Some of my most favorite people that I worked with in the past were the people who interviewed me because in the interview, they really cared about what I brought to the table. And it wasn't just trying to check a box, it was trying to find someone that was great for the role. And you remember those people even when you're working for the rest of your life. And so I can't explain to candidates enough that it's critical that you stay human in the process and don't allow yourself to get weighed down with going through the process. I definitely agree with that 100%. So then, if that is one of the ways that we can actually use the notion of bringing humans back into the process and not making them feel like a machine or things of that nature, do you think that this also catches fraud and people who they know all the buzzwords, they may not have the experience that they wrote on their resume? How do we actually cut down on people stepping into a position or people taking a slot from somebody else who doesn't have the skill set? I worry about that because you put out a job today and 10,000 people apply.
Right.
So now you can't go through all of those applications. So now essentially you have this whole set of people, and number 5,021 was your person. How do you get to them when you're dealing with this type of magnitude of people applying?
I think it's a very valid and relevant question, Gerald. Here's what I see. My son was between jobs a while back, and he applied to a service that he paid a nominal fee that was a bot. It would send out resumes all day, all day, all day, all day. He put his information in, and it popped it out. He found out that he was applying to 100 to 200 to 1,000 jobs a day. And it was just a machine that was just attack, attack, attack. What happened was the majority of the jobs were not valid, were not good. They were just, you know, placeholders to try and draw people in. So I think because of the situation, we have to have a better vetting process. And in the vetting process, it needs to be less cumbersome, less layered, agile, and it's really company dependent. So I saw a post on LinkedIn last week. I'm on my 7th interview for a $50,000 a year job. And so the person's like, why would I work there? What people have forgotten on the company side, and it'll answer your question around the about, is this: how you interview reflects your culture. If your process is so cumbersome, you have to go slog through it. You can't tell me how forward thinking you are. You can't tell me how agile you are. Because of the volume, I'm concerned that applicant 5,221, who I wanted to get to, may not be considered. I'm not sure exactly how to do that. However, you can use AI on your side as well. And so when you have it do screening, give it the prompts and give it the things that's really trained to look for talent, not just words. It's developing and evolving so quickly that it's hard to stay on top of it. But if you have a good method to work alongside it as a resource and a tool, it can help you go through things. Now, I don't think yet that it's as accurate as it should be, or it won't dive as deep as it could. And there's nothing wrong with following up. It's funny. I know I work with a lot of people in transition too, just because I think it's the right thing to do because it's hard to find jobs. The mechanisms that are out there are so thorough now, and you're seeing 400, 500, 1,000 people that apply for each job. It's daunting. I don't know if there's a really good, solid answer. I think there's an it depends, and you have to be diligent and focused to try and get
Mhm.
your people to cut through and say, okay, I'll take the first third and see what I have. But I'm not going to skip the second third and the third, but the first third, I'd like to pull out 10. You set some goals, see where you're at, and try and do it that way.
Interesting. So you feel we still go through a sample size to try to make sure that we get touch points between each group of people so that we don't just choose a cutoff. I'm only going to take 20 and then that's it. Right.
Right. We have obligations. If people apply, there's protections around that. That people, and one of the things you hear about employers is I applied and I never heard from you. Now, some of it is because of the volume, you're probably not going to. It's not that the company doesn't want to. It's just they may not even know you're there. So I think there has to be some parsing of it to try and get your hands around it and then be consistent with it. The thing that's hard about this is if you're a company that has significant openings all the time, I know some people that have 20, 30, 40 job recs going at the same time. And you just do the math. You're like, the time won't help it. So I think I'd evaluate your whole system instead of being caught up in the threads of this fire, this fire, this fire.
I really appreciate that. And I'm sure that there's many people who are listening to us right now. That's one of the burning questions in their ear is I'm applying all of these different places. I'm not getting a call back. Things feel very different now than what they were pre-pandemic. But we always knew that this was coming. This is not a surprise that the bubble was going to burst, where we're not going to have people hiring hand over foot, and then something was going to change. From what I understand, especially in the tech space, they would hire just to keep them from going to another company. Like that's how vicious the cycle is. But I want to take a step back into something that you mentioned, the parsing. So, one of the things that we do at Reference Me, and the reason why I think it's important that I share this, and when we built Reference Me, we didn't realize that it was really something that was more powerful today than when we first built it. But now in today's world, we realize the value that we provide when we use our platform. So, one aspect of our program is that we do add this level of parsing before it even gets to the application stage. But this parsing relies on humans. So the way that we look at it is if I am a very senior person, I should have people in my network who can actually vouch for my skills. And if you look at LinkedIn today, you can add those recommendations, but unfortunately, bots are the ones that can also augment that information. And so, on one area, it's great to see all the recommendations to show that this person is active, but then you have to ask the question, was it a bot or was it a real person? At Reference Me, what we did was we had a conversation with people that you worked with in the past, and we build what we call a profile or a certified reference. So, a great example of this is some of my clients, they say to me, I'm not getting any interviews. And after we dig into the process with them, we're like, well, companies have to be able to find you versus you trying to find them, essentially applying to all of these applications. What if there's a way for people to be attracted to you? And when we share with them how we do it by actually talking to people in their network that they've worked with in the past, then they will actually write a reference for that candidate. And then we, as a third party who doesn't have any skin in the game, we have these questions to validate whether that person even has a credibility in order to write the reference. When the process is said and done, it's an additional layer that you can give to the application that says, not only is my resume matching up with what you said you needed for the role, but here are 10 certified references from VPs, executives, people that I worked with in the past in order to determine that I do know what I'm doing and I'm able to provide impact to your company.
I think that's fascinating, and I like the additional layer. I like the humanity of it and the verification of it. When you say credibility, I think that's something we've missed. How does somebody present themselves credibly? I'm an engineer. Okay, well, what kind of engineer? What have you done? How have you applied it? What's going on? Give me a time when it didn't work. All those types of things. And to hear that from references who say, I worked with Steve and here's what I know. I like that additional layer, Gerald. I think it's a nice add-on.
What we found is that it builds the level of trust because when you hire someone, they're essentially an ambassador for your company. And so it's really critical that you do get these things right because they do cause ripple effects down the road. I've had situations where I had to hire and then let somebody go after 6 months. What that done to me and the company was that now we have to retrain. Now we have to find somebody new. Now we have to go through this process. And then we're also questioning ourselves. Like, how did we go through this entire process only to find someone that didn't really meet our criteria? But on paper, we thought they did, and they did well in the interview. But when it actually came down to delivering the work, we were very surprised that they didn't have the expertise that they claimed that they had. And so that was an eye opener for us and helping us understand that we do need a little bit more rigor when it comes to what we do up front in choosing candidates.
Right. I think we don't remember that we're making lifetime decisions. And by that, I mean, when I hire you, I'm changing your life and I'm changing the life of my culture. I'm adding to it. I'm bringing your diversity. I'm bringing your strengths. I'm bringing your skills. You're adding to the mix of the good people you already have. When someone leaves, you're affecting their life. We put in so much a technical term approach instead of a human approach. I think you can get the technical skill, but you got to find out what the person can really, really do.
So talk to me a little bit about retention because when I talk to HR professionals, I hear us talk a lot about talent acquisition. And while talent acquisition is important, if you have a leaky bucket, you bringing in great talent, but then you can't keep them, that's a huge problem. And at LaRosa's, I hear that you guys have one of the lowest turnover rates in companies that are in the same space that you're in. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about what makes LaRosa Inc. so special and how do they actually keep people once they join?
That's the magic question. What's interesting is as of November, I will have been here 19 years and I'm one of the least tenured people here.
Wow.
So we have a good problem. The reason I say a problem is this. In our office, we have 1% turnover. If people come, they stay. Why they stay? We just did one-on-one interviews with everybody in our office a couple years ago. I said, so Gerald, why do you stay at LaRosa's? I asked them straight up, and people go, I just love it here. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does love it here mean? And what's interesting is all the attributes of the culture that we have built over 71 years are consistent. So you can be yourself. You can have flexibility. You have autonomy. You're expected to perform. We're very human, very, very. We allow people to grow. We have an incredible it's funny, we don't use all the HR terms like internal mobility. We promote from within.
Absolutely.
One of the things that makes us different, sort of, is we're very upfront about who we are. So we LaRosify everything. So all of the HR terms and stuff you hear out in the world, nah, it's here. A lot of it's pizza oriented because it's what we do. In our restaurants, I think we have great retention, primarily at our general managers. Our managers, once you become a general manager, you don't leave. I regularly celebrate anniversaries of 5, 10, 20, 30, 40-year people. Now, we have turnover because we're a restaurant and people don't want to all work in a restaurant, or it's a first job for somebody. But the great thing that we have is while you're here, we want you to excel. And it's kind of an expectation. So as long as you're here, you can stay here, honestly, as long as you choose. And it's just a healthy way to do it. I fell into it. I'll be honest. I've never been at a company this long, but there's no other place I'd rather be. And we've talked to people. Hey, Gerald, you could go here. Hey, Susie, you could go here. Have you thought about this? And people are like, yeah, I'm staying. Okay.
That is amazing. And it talks about the genuine culture that you have where people will actually want to stay there. And if everybody thinks that way, it's a beautiful place to be. You feel like what you're doing matters because the people around you also share the same culture. So I love that.
Well, and, I love the programs that are out there that try to gauge engagement, best places to work and stuff like that. I have a little different take on it. I think there's a lot of value in those to try to get some metrics and assess where you're at. But honestly, if you hear people that work there, how they talk about it to others and what behavior do they experience while they're at work is far better than any assessment you'll ever take.
Absolutely love that. Talk to the people, talk to the ones who are working there to actually determine whether this is the right place for you. Because let's be honest, some people don't fit into every culture, and
Oh,
that's okay.
it's absolutely.
All right. So I'll jump into a totally different question because I know that you've been a keynote speaker and you also have worked very closely with the Society of HR Managers. What would you say is your style and what information that you like to convey when you are in the keynote speaking situation? Because you have a whole bunch of people in front of you, they have come to hear you speak. What are you thinking in your preparation process? And then what do you always like to communicate when you have an opportunity to speak on stage?
That's a wonderful question. I guess I approach it this way. I have ideas to share, and that's it. What you do and take it and how you apply it is what you need to do. I kind of make the audience have responsibility where I think a lot of speakers are great and they have a great message and is thorough and is motivating and is a 5-step program. You can't do that. Just like you said earlier, not every company is for everybody. Not every model is for everybody, but we tend to do that. We want the silver bullet. I don't give silver bullets. I give ideas and I tell stories, stories about my people, stories of my people I've come across over my career. I also have a lot of props and toys because I think people remember that. And the other thing I think that makes me a little different as a speaker is I'll laugh. When I was at the SHRM conference this year in San Diego, I was giving a presentation and I was doing my thing and somebody from the audience said something and I lost my mind. I just stopped. I laughed. I couldn't control myself. And so I was like, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And then afterwards, I used what they said about 18 more times because it just fit. And I think it's important for speakers to understand it's a privilege to be in front of anybody. And you should value the people who chose to use their time to come see you. Uh,
Mm.
I don't look at it as coming to see me. I think it's a chance to have a conversation, to share information, to learn from each other, and to have a good time. I think the final thing is this. I am very, very genuinely passionate about what I do and always have been. I know how hard HR is, but I also know how fulfilling it is. And people lose sight of that. And so to have somebody come alongside and say, I hear you, Gerald, I believe in you, and I do what you do, it makes a difference.
Wow. This is gold, really. I hope that those who are listening to this are really picking up what you're sharing because it's just phenomenal to me. So last night, I got up because I couldn't sleep. And I started looking at your LinkedIn profile. I noticed that you're almost up to 50,000 followers. Congratulations on that. To me, that shows that you are committed to actually sharing with the community the things that you have learned. And while I was there, I read one or two of your publications, and I just want to ask you about it. One of them I commented on because I just thought it was such a beautiful way of describing what we're dealing with today in society. And you talked about how your chimney was covered with, I guess, you use the term slime, and you went up there with the help of your wife or your daughter, one of the 2, I can't remember exactly, and you started using pressure wash against the chimney, and all of a sudden, the beautiful red brick started to show up, and you showed a picture of it inside of that blog post. And then as you went through speaking, you talked about how HR teams need to take that pressure washer and start taking off the negativity in their organizations so that they can truly see the beauty. And I was just like, oh, I have to ask you about that. Like, what was the inspiration? What really puts you in that state? And what an incredible message that if we can actually remove the negativity, what kind of organizations will we have? So I wanted to get a little bit more deeper into that to see what your thoughts are.
Well, first of all, thank you for reading and thank you for commenting because there are tons of people who read, I think, and it takes that extra step to make a statement. And I read your comment and it was awesome. Uh, here's the thing. I'm a little different in that I see HR everywhere. I really do. Every kind of experience can have that application to the workplace. Too often, we just talk work, 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 work. What's this project? What's this? Instead of saying, here's a life situation. Have you thought about applying this at work? So, as I was standing on the ladder and then standing on the roof, just getting covered in algae, I thought, you know what? We don't expose the talent of our people. We talk about what's wrong with them. We talk about the gaps they have. We talk about how they're underperforming. And we pick at little things and it turns in this big layer of junk. And when you put on top of that, people have life going on. And you have no idea what's happening. Really, the pressures in society, the uncertainty of what's going on everywhere. It just encumbers people. If you took time as an HR professional and say, hey, I'm going to scrape that away so you can thrive, what a different approach. Instead of piling on and just allowing other people, leaders or companies or leaders to say, what's wrong? It's funny. You can't fix people. People aren't going to be fixable, but you can help them thrive and grow and be encouraged. And so, in order to do that, you have to get this bad stuff out of the way so that their true talent can come through. So, I just see it. It's terrible. Right? It's kind of a
Mm,
curse.
yeah. One of the things that you mentioned in the article too is it's not like the algae just came on one day. Right? It came over time and all of this buildup happens over time. And so it's almost like all of us have experienced negativity in our lives. But if we don't maintain it and understand how to put it in its place and understand exactly when it really needs to be cleaned off, then we end up only seeing the world through the negative experiences that we had versus seeing the world through the beautiful people that we are.
Yeah.
And while I do work a lot with HR, my background traditional is engineering as well, by the way.
Oh,
And so I led people and I led engineering teams. That was my background. And now I'm working in a space where I deal with people more than I dealt with in my profession. And I'm just amazed at the myriad of colors that and I want to say colors, I'm going to say the myriad of personalities that I actually come across. Some people are very active, engaged. It feels like they are able to explore more of who they are because they didn't have that level of negativity. And then when you come across others who have been bounded by negativity, you can see immediately that before we can even move forward to get you to the level of confidence that you need to actually achieve the goals that you need to achieve, we have to deal with this negativity. And so
Absolutely.
I thought a lot about what you wrote, and it really made me think about it. Does the absence of negativity truly help us become our best selves?
Yes, I think it does. And what's funny is when we were children or parents of children, you hear praise far more than you hear correction. When you're an adult, you hear far more correction than you do
Mm,
praise. And there's no reason for it. People are wonderful and messy. They're both. And what we forget is I'm a person too. So I have as much stuff going on as you do. It's a great opportunity to build into people. What's interesting when you talked about our culture at LaRosa's, it's probably the most encouraging, uplifting, positive, consistent place I've ever been. And in the middle of that, we still talk about people that suck our souls away instead of talking about the people who are awesome. If we talk about the people who are awesome and help the people who are struggling, then we're ahead of the game.
yeah, definitely ahead of the game. We're almost up in time, but I do have some quick questions that I want to get your thoughts on. Number one, what are the maybe two or three different technologies that you all use in LaRosa Inc. that you feel other companies should know about?
I think that our ATS system is very unique. It's smaller than some of the big monsters out there. And in it, we've been able to customize things. And I like it because it applies to us. One of the things I always like about tech, Gerald, that I think people miss is if I was using your firm, how does it work with my firm? Not what does your tech do? A lot of times we hear about applications and what it can, how it can perform instead of saying, this is what Reference Me does. How can I tie it in LaRosa's? When I find those type of partnerships, that's the tech we use. The second thing is for years before I was even here, we developed our own internal point of sale system with a third party company, and they've been our partner ever since. You can buy them off the shelf, but we have somebody who works with us, and he has really La Rosified the heck out of everything. So it's cutting edge for us. It's soup to nuts. A person clocks in through our point of sale, and it also does the inventory for our stores. So having tech that's customizable, I think really works for us. I wish more people would do that. I think there's great tech out there that you can buy off the shelf, but there has to be that tie to the company.
Absolutely love that. In my mind, to even think about the procurement, the logistics, the just in time, the different employees, all the stuff, and actually having it tied into one system, that to me was way ahead. You're way ahead of the time. Like we're still getting to that now, trying to plug all of these systems together. I bet everybody's using AI to try to do it, but they haven't gotten to the place where they feel very comfortable that they're able to determine what's happening at every step of these systems. And then each of those systems they upgrade independently. So what worked one week all of a sudden stops working because the other part of the system is doing something else. And so I love the fact that you all thought about that ahead of time. You said, we need to be able to have a system that allows us to customize specifically for our business. I think that that is the key of
Yeah.
what the future is gonna hold. All right. So give you two things and then you choose one or the other. You don't need to tell me why. You just need to choose one or the other. So for example, I would say Thai food or Jamaican food.
Oh, Thai food.
Thai food. Okay. Would you rather jog 26 miles or swim 5 miles?
Swim.
Swim 5 miles. Very interesting. Okay. Do you prefer the purr of a cat or the bark of a dog?
What if I just said yes?
So you like both, which is
Yes.
great. And then what would be, and this is just an open end question, what is the thing that you do that is outside of work that brings you joy?
Oh, uh, I mentioned earlier I'm a people person. So every day when I go home, I have a 45-minute commute. Every day I call somebody and I
Oh,
just talk to them and I check in on them and I see how they're doing. Yesterday, I had somebody who reached out to me on LinkedIn and we've met each other for moments at a SHRM conference. And she says, I'm really struggling. I don't know where I'm going. I'm kind of burnt out. And I said, would you mind talking? And she said, really? And I said, yeah. So I called her and then I found out about her wife, her daughter, her son, all these things that I never knew about the person. But to be able to be there for other people is something that's really, I feel I'm called to do. I don't want to impose or be a bother, but I don't think enough people have people in their corner. I love making phone calls on the way home.
that is amazing. So this wraps up our session. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think that the beautiful thing about live podcasts and podcasts in general is the ability to have these things play on in history over time. And I believe that there will be a lot of people that will benefit from what was shared at this moment. We definitely want to thank the PFN network. You have all been so amazing creating an environment where leaders can get together. And this podcast is a part of Fringe. And so it's been a wonderful pleasure hearing about the stories and the way that your company has treated humans. I'm not going to say as resources, but as people. And that is absolutely amazing. Have any last words?
Gerald, it's been fun. I knew it would be. I love having conversations with people. And so you have made my day already. And anytime I get a chance to highlight the good people of our company, it's a good day.
All right. Well, this is awesome. We'll be signing off. Have a fantastic remainder of your week. And those who are listening, get out and call someone on your way home. It'll make all the difference in their life and in yours as well. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Gerald.